Hello, hello. This is Christina Barn. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barnes. Today we're going to be talking about this woke. I feel that it's woke. I think most people feel that it's woke, but I'm seeing some surprising pushback from some Christian influencers about the Super Bowl ad from the He Gets Us campaign. I guess, and some people, I suppose, know the people behind it. They're like, these are Christians who made it. If you go to their website, they say that there's people who are non-Christians who are part of the organization and stuff. So I don't know who all had a hand in it, but it does seem political considering some of the imagery there. So we will talk about it. We'll talk about that, and we'll be talking about that for probably most of the time. And something else that Trump said about Taylor Swift, and he said that over the weekend, probably like, I don't know, Friday, Saturday, or something like that, about not wanting her to endorse Joe Biden, or she shouldn't, or something like that. And he made a case, and I just think it's so bizarre sometimes who he bothers to mention. It's like, bro, you're the president of the United States. You don't need to come after Tay Tay, and she's probably going to endorse Joe. So anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to Black Tea News to check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It does cost a stream and run my website, all that stuff. You guys can support in that way. I do very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. If you're watching back later, you guys can still give the same way on Facebook, but you'd have to maybe send super thanks at that point. You guys can also check out different merch that we have available at blacktnews.com. We got different mugs and t-shirts like this, My Money, My Business. We got this cool Frederick Douglass tee here. So go ahead and check out the merch available at the store. You guys can also check out some of my books that I've written on it. Available on Amazon, like these cool super kid books or middle grade chapter books for your kiddos, and the whole family could read it if you would like to do that. And also have historical fiction fantasy series, The Color of God's Eyes, followed by The Song of the Devil's Lips, which takes place in the Civil War. Imagine like the American Civil War meets X-Men. So it's got superpowers, action, adventure, drama, romance, all that stuff. So if you go to blacktnews.com, go to the merchandise page, there's a banner that'll take you to my book website, but you really can just search Christina L. Barr, that's with a CH, on Amazon to find my stuff and follow my stuff. So I thank you guys, those of you who checked out my work. I appreciate it. I guess I have some memes I can show you guys, but they're related to the main topic of the day. So before I get to the meat of the Christian controversy with the Super Bowl ad, first of all, I want to say I hope you guys had a nice weekend, enjoyed your weekend. I did not watch the Super Bowl, but which I told you guys I wouldn't do. I did not know Usher and them were performing, but man, people were excited. And he's unfortunately all over my TikTok. And I know that was like growing up, those were the songs that people would play and listen to and stuff. But I was the kid that would come home and tell my parents they were playing naughty music on the bus. So and make it so they couldn't play music. Yes, I was that person. So didn't really speak to me. Anyway, I don't really watch the halftime shows, regardless. So though I did hear that unfortunate crack from gosh, what's her name? Alicia Keys. My sister was like, "Did you see it?" When I came home, she's like, "No, I didn't. I don't know what you're talking about." And she's like, "Alicia Keys cracked." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "Well, did she kind of try to cover it? Because she has like a raspy kind of thing sometimes with her voice." And as soon as she played it, immediately there was a crack. I was like, "Oh!" And I made a face, and she just laughed. Like that would really suck, man. That would really suck. Well, someone's watching from Scotland. Hello there. Good evening to you. Um, yes, so I didn't watch the Super Bowl myself, so I know the Kansas City Chiefs won, and Henry Cavill was there. They flew him out there, and you know, 'cause I'm just not a big sports person. Not a big sports person. But sometimes you hear about different commercials and stuff. So this became a hot topic on social media. So that's how I found out about that. But really quickly, I want to talk about the national anthem again, or not the national anthem, but the controversy regarding the Black national anthem. With Lift Every Voice, they didn't play that during the show. It was like pre-show and stuff, and I I already have an article that I wrote about this last year when it was a big controversy, and I don't think it's as big of a controversy as it was last year with people talking about it. Um, in the rendition, I don't remember the artist who did it. Sang it a lot better than last year's. I didn't like last year's rendition, and they say the artist sang it better this time around. But I wish if they were going to sing the song that they would just kind of sing it normal and not do any kind of like interesting things with the, I don't know, drums and choirs and stuff. Just kind of sing it. It has a beautiful melody. Just kind of sing it straight so people can get to know the song, I guess. Kiki Shear has a rendition online that's really good. But if someone asked me to sing the song at the Super Bowl, I would be honored to sing the song in the Super Bowl, just like I'd be honored when Republicans ask me to sing the song at Republican events. Um, and just like I'm honored to sing "God Bless America," "America the Beautiful" at events in the Star Spangled Banner. It's not always my favorite to sing the Star Spangled Banner because it's just kind of a hard song to do. You don't want to screw it up, but I've done it so many times. I don't really have nerves about it now, I guess. But you still wouldn't want to screw with that song. But it's always an honor to be asked to do those things. So if I was asked, I would do it and I would go. And if people were upset, people would be upset. But um, just so folks know, when people say it's the Black national anthem, it's just kind of been affectionately known that for like 100 years. And if you just found that out last year or last night or right now, um, it's true anyhow. People have been calling it that longer than the Star Spangled Banner has been the official national anthem. It doesn't mean that um, anyone wants to start their own nation. I certainly don't. I love being an American, and there's only one national anthem. But Lift Every Voice is a beautiful song. It's a beautiful hymn. I think Trump should tweet out, it's such an honor, a beautiful thing to have a hymn playing at the Super Bowl, and we can all worship God together, or something like that. And the people will be annoyed, or something, probably because he'll kind of probably be over. He probably wouldn't even do it anymore if Trump was like, "Yes, we all need to worship God together." As one nation. And that'll probably be it. But yeah, but the beauty of the song is that it's really about honoring God for bringing us so far and believing that God can help us move forward. So the crime, I guess, of the right, to me, not looking at the song is challenging the left to be like the song. I want the left to be like the song. If you look at the lyrics of the song, I want the left to be like the song. The woke, angry BLM activists, I want them to be like the song, sing a song full of the hope that the faith that the dark past has taught us, sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. There's such optimism in this song rather than the bitterness that we have today. So I like the song. I've always liked the song. I've sung it since I was a child, and I have sung the song at Republican events, usually during Black History Month, for Black History events. I was talking to my youngest sister about this a little bit over the phone, and she said, I kind of hate how the left uses these things that we've had for a while and it gets flipped, and all of a sudden it's like controversial, and she's like lift every voice, because we've been singing that song since we were kids. And she also mentioned Juneteenth, which Juneteenth they did that more in like down south for stuff, but we were having Juneteenth celebrations at like the Michigan Republican Party for a while. And it was our thing. It was our day. It was like Republicans freed the slave. So it was like a special Juneteenth events and stuff. So, leading like prayer breakfasts on Juneteenth, we went to the Rock in Michigan, where, we kind of have we say that the Republican Party was founded there. I know someone else like claims the Republican Party was founded somewhere else, but we have a Rock. So we had an event there to honor Juneteenth. And so, and now it's like, Juneteenth. Now, I don't really think it makes sense for Juneteenth to be like a national kind of holiday, especially because people look at it like, oh, we're celebrating this, all the slaves got freed. I'm like, nope, there were still slaves after that. So if we were going to have some kind of national celebration to honor that, Juneteenth isn't actually a good day for that. They still had slaves in like Delaware and other places like that. So by the time Juneteenth comes, so now I feel like this holiday, instead of informing people, it's misinforming people. And I even saw, like, when they first made it a holiday, I think like the Republican Party, I don't know if it was RNC or it was Michigan Republican Party, but that did it. But I just saw people spreading misinformation about it. So I'm like, okay, now this is kind of having the opposite effect of what we'd want something like this to do. So, but yeah, people did still celebrate those things prior to them using it controversially. And I'm not an idiot. I'm aware that people want to break symbols that we have that are supposed to join us together, like the national anthem. And one of the purposes of uplifting like every voice to some people is to be like, well, one of the verses in this song has something about slaves or something, so therefore the song is evil, and so this is your real national anthem. Or the 4th of July, they still had slaves when the 4th of July came, so you gotta, your Independence Day, think about how they treated the Negro, you gotta look toward Juneteenth, that's your real day. And no, we don't. I understand people are doing that, and but we don't have to let them win, I guess. And with all the games they're trying to be divisive on, I just encourage the right to not always take the bait, to strategically respond and not always do the outrage culture. Sometimes we're just so into outrage culture or clickbait. I don't know. I could mention, this will get me off track a little bit, but I saw a tweet today that was so clickbaity. I'm getting off topic a bit, but I didn't understand the reason for saying this other than clickbait. And Bridget Gabriel, who maybe you guys have probably seen her before, but her tweet was, raise your daughters to be like Melania Trump, not Taylor Swift. And yeah, she did that yesterday, so I saw it today, and I'm like, why? Why would you tweet that? Because immediately my mind is like, people are going to have nude pictures of Melania in these replies, and they did. And most people were talking about, you instead of being like a self-made billionaire and a songwriter, you want her to be someone who did nude photos and stuff. Now, obviously, Melania is more than that. I admire how much she's focused on her son and raising her son, and she obviously doesn't do those things, and to her, like, where she's from. I mean, one time she explained the nudity stuff, and she's just kind of like, we don't say it the same way as like folks see it here in America. Fair enough, I guess. But I mean, I wouldn't want that to be something on my daughter's record. And I wouldn't want, my daughters to go through multiple like dudes and heartbreaks and the things that Taylor writes about, and other things about Taylor Swift crying about how Marsha Blackburn doesn't care about women, what, because she doesn't want to kill babies. Like I wouldn't want my daughters to particularly be like either one. I'd want them to be like more wholesome examples of a Proverbs, 31 kind of woman. So anyway, uh I was just thinking about it. I'm like, there's no reason to tweet this other than engagement. Do you really there was no other woman, not even on the right, that you wanted to uplift above Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift's name is hot stuff, so people mention her. Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Kat said, I think I'd rather raise my daughters to be like you, smart, free thinking, creative. Can't read to read your book. You clearly love your country and God. Thank you. Thank you. I would not be ashamed if I had when I have daughters, Lord willing, if they were like me, I would not mind at all. You want the people to be better than you always want people to raise your kids and stuff better, but I feel pretty good about myself, but not to do my own horn, but I have good parents and they raise us right. So anyway, that tweet just kind of floored me. Like I immediately am like, nude pics of the first lady popping up right now. Anyway. And people on the other side might have said like, I'd rather than be like Michelle Obama, but I just hated Michelle when Michelle was like, for the first time, I was proud of my country, when she saw people getting on board behind Barack, and I'm like, that's the first time for real, like. And I think one time they asked her like who she would, if she could be anybody, who it should be, and she said Beyonce, and people were like, you're an educated woman and all this. I mean, you pick Beyonce. Anyway, let's get to this commercial. So there's a lot of controversy here with this commercial, with at least within the Christian community and the right and stuff. And some people, I'm a little surprised with their reactions to this. I guess I would assume most people kind of have a negative outlook toward it. But there was a couple people who pushed back. Now, I guess I'll go ahead and explain what it is. I'm not gonna actually play the commercial. I'll show you like some of the images. I don't know if all these images were in the commercial, but you can go to the website. He gets us to learn some more about them. And again, this is an organization that's made up of believers, and I guess some people who believe that Jesus is God, and some people who aren't Christian who just like Jesus. And I don't know what all that means. If I was gonna have a Christian kind of organization, I would have like a Christian kind of focus on Jesus. So from through the eyes of believers telling that perspective. But the interesting stuff, their Twitter feed is like kind of a woke approach to, not kind of alluding to scriptures, not really saying anything about scriptures if you go through like their Twitter feed and stuff. But the commercial, they had these images of people's feet getting washed, and at the end they said Jesus didn't teach hate, he washed feet. So here are these different images, like the police officer washing feet, that was in the ad. And here's this other girl washing this girl's feet, washing this Native man's feet. The abortion clinic one, that one's getting a lot of chatter, especially because there's the woman having her feet washing on the side, and you guys probably can't see it in this image, well, on your screen, how small it is to you guys, but there's people on the side who are activists who have like signs, not wanting her to abort her baby. So the image here is giving people the vibes of like, okay, so the people who don't want her to kill the baby, they're off on the side. Are they like the villains of this picture, while the person who's washing the feet and serving this young lady who's, I guess, about to go to the clinic or did go to the clinic to abort her baby is being served, and the people not doing that is the contrast of that. People are questioning the motivation there and what's being said. Um, uh, and washing the feet of, I think this woman's supposed to be alcoholic, washing the feet of I believe, supposed to be a migrant on her way to somewhere. Um, washing the feet here of a Muslim woman, like a suburban woman, where her husband, I guess, kind of looks on. Some more feet washing here. Um, that one's probably, I mean, they got their feet together, so that one's probably perhaps the nicest one. And this one also caused controversy here, with this priest washing this feet of this man who, mannerisms and all, and just kind of gives the view that he's a bit gay. Um, so let me go back to this abortion clinic thing. Okay, so I'll get to this deeper, but let me just say this first. At first, when people say that Jesus didn't teach hate, he washed feet. He washed the feet of his disciples. He didn't have like a feet washing ministry. Like, he did that to do as a show of an example to his disciples, and he did far more than that. So if you were gonna buy a big ad for the Super Bowl, pay like $100 million or whatever they have to pay to get an ad. This just wouldn't be the thing that I'd go toward. The thing that I go toward, and however fast you could put this in a commercial, one of the most profound, best kind of creative explanations of the gospel. There's a movie called The Blind by about Phil Robbins. Is it Phil Robbins or Phil Robinson? Who's the Duck Commander dad? And he was. It's a good movie. You can find it on Amazon. And he was an alcoholic, and he didn't treat his family right, and he got in his mind that his wife was trying to control him and other kind of stuff like that. So basically, he reached the lowest point of his life, and he was alone. Is Phil Robinson. The lowest point of his life, and his wife had tried to get a preacher to talk to him before, but he just wouldn't have it. And so now he's like ready to hear what the preacher had to say. And so the preacher said, every story is basically about a man trying to reach the top of the mountain, like doing different feats to achieve some kind of greatness. And the story of the gospel, someone leaving the top of the mountain to come down and say that chip on that, that you have nothing to prove, and that chip on your shoulder, you don't need it anymore. And I just thought that was such a beautiful way to look at it, because we do write all these stories about these Hercules and all his his feats that he had to do, like the iconic sort of literature that keeps spawning, and story after story after story about achieving something. And internally, that's what so many of us want, to achieve greatness and etc. And God in all his glory humbles himself to serve, to come and minister to us and disciple people, which discipleship is so lacking in today, and to sacrifice himself to pay the debt of our sin. And all we have to do is say, I believe, and turn away from our sins after he pays the debt of our sin. I had a conversation about this whole ordeal with someone, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but let me explain this. So I was I saw someone mention that sinners probably didn't really think too much of the ad anyway. And so someone was like, "Oh no, I thought it was pretty good." And they started talking about Christians and how so many of them don't claim to read the book cover to cover, and they don't even know like the basic things that Jesus taught. And the basic thing that they believe that Christians were supposed to learn is to love thy neighbor and forgive others. And they all always gloss over that. And I was like, you think the most basic lesson, I said, you don't think the most basic lesson is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul? Like, that's thing number one right there. And they said, I can't buy that God's first mandate is you must love me with all your heart. If I'm him/her, I'd say you must love each other with all your hearts. We've all seen the Christians that give praise on Sundays and forget everything for the other 6 days. But what Jesus teaches versus how Christians or so-called Christians end up behaving is different. Like, I'm talking about what Jesus taught. And so I shared out of Matthew when Jesus is actually talking about the love thy neighbor. Like, people are like, oh, that's the greatest commandment. No, it's the second greatest commandment. The first greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and with all your mind. And he says this is first and the greatest commandment. And so I screenshot that and I put it in our conversation and highlighted it. And then they said, oh, I have no doubt that it was said. It's just that I wouldn't have made that my number one rule. I'd be more like, prove to me that you are capable of looking past the other person and be able to love each other. Then you are worthy of my love. Imagine if he had just said that. Now, this was pretty amazing to me. And I then issued a lengthy reply because this person is describing a works-based gospel that's dependent upon not us. If they were God, we'd have to prove our love to them before we would be worthy of their love. And I said, what you get wrong is that there's nothing that we can personally do. No sort of works that we can achieve to be worthy of the love of God. There's nothing that we can do to be worthy of the redemption or the price that was paid or anything. But God loves us nonetheless, so much so that Christ is willing to die on the cross to pay for our sins, because God is not only merciful and loving, but he is equally just. So there needs to be a punishment for sin. But Jesus was willing to pay that debt. He's already paid it, as a matter of fact, already paid it. So all you have to do is accept the gift. But this person thinking they're so much better than God is like, you have to, wouldn't it be nice if you proved yourself before I loved you? No, not at all. Not at all. And so they didn't respond to me after I wrote my reply, but I did end it with, like, as far as what you would do with the gospel or whatever, you could start off, get back to me after you die and pay for my sins. And then we'll talk. Then we will talk. But they started their conversation coming for Christians for glossing over and not understanding the gospel. But the issue wasn't that people misunderstood the gospel, which people do misunderstand the gospel, don't get me wrong. But the issue was they just don't like the gospel. They just don't like the gospel. You cannot love your neighbor and not preach to them the gospel. How do you claim to love your neighbor and not let them know about Jesus? How like Penn Jillette, he's an atheist. He's a magician. And he said, like, something so nail on the head about the gospel. And he talked about how one time someone came up to him and, gave him, I think, a Bible or some kind of track or something after a show. And they're like, I'm not a crazy person or anything like that, but, just wanted to, like, share with you. And so he didn't think the man was crazy or anything like that. And he thought it was nice that the man like proselytized to him. And he said, I don't respect Christians that don't proselytize. He's like, I don't. Because if you truly believe that like people are going to die and go to hell, and that you had the answer to eternal life, but you said nothing. He's like, how much do you have to hate me to not say anything? Because he said, if I believed with everything that I am, that there was a truck barreling down about to hit you, he's like, sooner or later, I'm just going to tackle you to the ground. So if you're a person who's like, well, I'm a Christian, I'm just gonna keep it to myself. Like there's other religions that don't evangelize or do like proselytizing and stuff. Christianity is not that, because the Great Commission is you have to go and spread the gospel. And Jesus told Peter, he's like, do you love me? And he said, yes, you know I love you, Lord. He's like, to feed my sheep, feed my lambs. Like, and he also said, keep my commandments and stuff. So if you love God, then it's evident what you will do. It's evident that you will spread the gospel and that you will keep his commandments. Sometimes you fall short. We all mess up sometimes. But there needs to be an intent to be better, to do better, to try to keep on the right path. So people have such a screwed up mentality regarding all this stuff. So anyway, let's talk about hate. What they claim is hate. They said that Jesus washed feet. He doesn't teach hate, or he didn't teach hate. What does that even mean? Seriously, what does it mean? Because I'm told I'm hateful quite often. So if I said, hey, God made male and female, not something in between, not a spectrum. No one is non-binary. There aren't 67 million genders because you feel like it. There's male and female. There's man and woman. And that's all. And you can't switch. You can't switch. God didn't make you to switch. If I said there's God made male and female in reference scripture that Jesus referenced, that references Genesis, is that hateful? I have it on good authority, not good authority, but like some people's authority, that's hateful. That's hateful. If you said Dylan Mulvaney is a man, always will be a man, nothing to do to not be a man, that is hateful. That's the word on the streets today. So if that's hateful, if that is hateful, then I suppose in today's worldly standards, then Jesus did teach hate. Now that's not hateful. It's just the truth. We need to rejoice with truth. That's actually love, rejoicing in truth, right? So, then there's, well, what if I said that God made male and female, and the man is supposed to leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife? And well, I'm getting to really touchy territory here. And that's how God created marriage to be within that covenant. That's really hateful today. So I'm told. Or so I'm told. Now let me really step on some toes. Let's get crunchy, right? What if I said that the when Moses wrote that people could just put away their wives and stuff, and people divorcing all willy-nilly isn't the way that God originally intended it to be? And there are reasons that you can, but people usually do it because of hardness of hearts. That I said something up there, man. That was super controversial. So, and I don't think it's hateful. People would say, "Oh, that's judgmental." That's it. I don't have to say I don't have to tell you what's right. I don't have to make a judgment on what's right and wrong. If the Lord already spoke about it. The Lord already spoke about it. I don't have to make a judgment on what right and wrong is. Just mentioning it doesn't make me hateful, unless you just think the book is hateful and God is the one who's hateful. Jesus is the one who's hateful. So Jesus taught some hard things that people didn't always want to receive. He did end up crucified, did he not? People did choose Barabbas over him, did they not? And the interesting thing about all these like social justice folks who want to rewrite Jesus as if he was some kind of hippie standing up for the downtrodden, which he absolutely did, but Jesus, he's no respecter of persons. So the same people that people find to be so absolutely privileged that they really despise are the same people that Jesus would stand up for and died for them as well. Like, you're not more important because you have a less of a social standing, that you're of a sort of a what we view to be a lower class, or because you got no money in your bank account. That doesn't make you more moral or more special to God. You know? But the Jews were being oppressed by the Romans. And they were expecting someone to kind of be like a leader or a revolution kind of person to restore like Israel to, how it kind of was in its heyday or glory day or whatever. He just wasn't what people like expected. And there are obviously people who loved his message and converted, and but there are people who obviously never got the message, and he wasn't what they had in mind. So a lot of these people who are like, we're the people who are oppressed and need to stand up to our oppressors, etc., blah blah blah. How are you much different than the people who ultimately wanted him on that cross? You're not. You're not. And he would be saying some hard things today if he was among us preaching in the streets about go and sin no more. Folks wouldn't like that too much either. So people have a really skewed sense of Jesus. They do. They do. So anyway, I want to show you guys some of these comments before I dig down a little further. I was surprised. Oh, I gotta switch my screen. Gotta switch my screen to this Twitter page. We've got a lot of tabs open. I do see the chat. I see someone from Twitch writing some messages. Though I look at them when I can. I'm trying to keep my thoughts as I go through these stories. So inspiring philosophy kind of clapped back at this person who said the woke Super Bowl ad so far from Christians. And he said, yeah, how dare they? I wonder who they learned this idea from about the washing the feet. And what do you mean? Went back and forth with some people about it too. Let me scroll up a little bit. I guess Candace Owens started talking about the psychological conditioning of Christians in America continues. Too many Christians in America are weak and will defend the faith. Too many Christians in America are weak and will defend the faith of others while allowing their own faith to be publicly mocked and ridiculed by the media. There can be no doubt that seemingly never-ending denominations has allowed for this. One of the typical biblical names for the devil is Diablos, derived from the term diabolin, to throw apart. If God is great gathering force and the sin is scattering power, what is divided will eventually be conquered. I assume some of that is like, she has her husband's Catholic. And someone said, Jesus told us the people to go sin no more. Our Lord does not endorse the grave sin of engaging in homosexuality. I wonder who funded this expensive ad. And what do you meme said, I'm not sure you understood the context of the ad. It's not trying to mock Christianity. It was made by Christians. And the point is that as Christians, we should be the first to wash the feet of serve those in our society, those we both agree with and don't. So I don't know if that's really the case because, as um, someone from the Babylon Bee pointed out, Joel Berry, he made a good point. He said, "There's a reason the He Gets Us commercial didn't show a liberal washing the feet of someone in a MAGA hat or a BLM protester washing an officer's feet. That would have been actually subversive, because they were strictly following oppressed versus oppressor intersectionality guidelines. This tells me they were either A, trying to sell Jesus to leftists by hinting Jesus thinks just like them, or B, cynically using Jesus to sell a political movement." And I think there's some truth to the choices that they made here, you know. Why don't you see kind of like the reverse? This does go along with the usual sort of power structure. So I don't think that's an accident. And maybe it was made by Christians. That doesn't mean they're not woke, or that they didn't collaborate with some people who were woke to get the sort of shots that um, they ended up with. Now, Kirsten Hawkins, apparently, maybe she knows the people who are associated with it, because she kind of went off about it. She said, "My family and I have been on my daughter's Make-A-Wish trip, so I missed the He Gets a Super Bowl ad. I woke up to my social media filled with pissed off Christians who are angry at TV ads showed all of America that Jesus is love and he loves even sinners. I'm confused. From our extensive research from pro-life generations, um, Institute for the Pro-Life Advancement, we know that the majority in those middle on abortion think pro-lifers are as angry and hateful, which the angry social comments are confirming, by the way. The Christians who I know who launched the He Gets Us are opposed to abortion 100%. Their ad attempted to show those not on our side first that we love them, because unless they know how much we love, they won't listen to a darn thing we say to them about how wrong abortion is." Which I to just pop in here. Um, Kristen, I've seen quite a bit of her videos. I have met her, interviewed her, and she matches energy. Like, people will go rabbit on her and stuff. I've never seen her go like kind of crazy rabbit or anything like that. So I'm not like totally match energy, but it's not like she's a wilting flower when she engages and stuff. So and she had she excuse me, she's has a pretty kind of she can get kind of snippy. And when she and Lila Rose engage with Destiny, they they match energy. So I guess I'm a little taken aback by the I guess critique or condemnation here. When was the last time you seriously listened to someone who held the opposite of your view while thinking that person hated you? Jesus is love. Washing feet of those we disagree with or sinners is a humbling act to show our neighbor that we love them despite their sins. We love them so much. That's why we are willing to serve, even have the difficult conversations about why repentance should be sought, because unlike the rest of the world, we care about their soul. That shouldn't be controversial for Christians to get. The end. So a abolitionist rising who doesn't like groups like Students for Life and Live Action and stuff, said the messaging and tactics of the pro-life movement and big um Ava and even liberal Ava are virtually identical. It's no surprise that pro-life leaders like He Gets Us. So they're very much like bring, you know, there's redemption, but there's also justice that's needed. So they mm, uh bump heads with these folks a lot. So again, the let me show you this meme. um Inspiring Philosophy had retweeted it. Remove your hand. I don't know what movie this is from actually, but remove your hand from the box and you die. What's in the box? A Super Bowl ad telling you to love your neighbors. Christians screaming. So I think Joel has a point about the particular imagery that they chose. And with the abortion clinic one, they imagine this. Imagine the ad wasn't the pictures that they showed. Imagine the ad was um someone washing the feet of Freddy Krueger on Elm Street. Imagine that someone was washing the feet of It the Clown in the sewers. And they're on the way to kill some kids. And and the ad said, Jesus didn't teach hate. He washed feet. Imagine if that was the ad. Would you go, that's the gospel? Would you do that? Would you do that? Now, of course, I just mentioned like fictional characters, but because they didn't actually kill kids, but you know, you could list like real people who did that. Would you be like, that's the gospel? Would you go, or would you go, that's really messed up? Ain't y'all gonna save them kids? She's at a crime scene, bro. Right in front of a crime scene. So, and again, the people who are protesting are off on the side, not serving the person who's about to do this evil thing. So it would be evil, but I wholeheartedly believe in redemption over condemnation. And when I wrote my book, of course, guys blatantly against abortion, that's a huge portion of the book. However, we have to talk plainly about evil to try to stop evil from happening as well. And God is loving and he is merciful, and he's also just, though. He's also just. And I was over the weekend, I got into a TikTok live with someone that I was on there for hours, but it ended with this guy who was like, you probably haven't heard a lot of Christians mention this, but but we can't judge. The Bible says not to judge. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that at all. It's just to judge righteously. I'm like, there's a whole book of Judges. It's like about like there's a system set up of people to judge. We make judgments all the time. Like, we don't judge what is good and evil. Like, God's already said what is good and evil and stuff. And so us just going off of what God already said, that's, you know, we can have laws and other things like that. And but you know, when I use we all use examples of like, you wouldn't, because he kept saying that God gives us free will. We have the right to choose or whatever. And we're like, okay, but God gave us free will to do other things. Like you would say, like, just because God gives free will for a man to go commit a sexual assault, that means that we shouldn't throw them in jail. And so after a while, it's just like, this man is trolling us. This man is trolling us. And he's like, no, I'm not. But this was someone, he kept saying like, you know, I'm a Christian, but you know, he was married to someone who wasn't a Christian. His friends weren't Christian, and he just didn't really seem to believe in proselytizing. And we all, at that point in time, everyone else like on the panel, there's one pro-choice person, but they were like really silent like the whole time we had this conversation. But everyone else just started like giving him scripture after scripture after scripture. Like your complacency isn't helping people, man. Like, we're supposed to evangelize. We're supposed to preach the gospel. We are not supposed to just be silent and while people do these evil actions. And we do have the authority to make judgments and issue laws here on earth. We don't all just like have chaos reigning and everybody does whatever they want to do, and then God just sorts it out on Judgment Day. That's not how we live, and that's not how he wanted to live either, because he didn't think that should be the way, that the thing for like people who commit other crimes. And he would just say, well, those things are already illegal. Okay. So someone mentioned like slavery used to be legal. He's like, oh, but that's different. Like, yeah, they're different things. There's still immoral things that happened that needed to be made illegal. Violation of human rights. So, Babylon B, or not the B rather, wrote a good article about this, and my sister sent it to me. I didn't mean to talk the whole hour about this, but essentially, I suppose it's an important topic though. Um, and I'm gonna read the whole thing. I'm just gonna get to the end. One thing that was kind of um interesting though, people did start using the tagline "He gets us," but they used like images of like Revelations or Old Testament of, the flood and fire raining down from heaven, or I guess is the image from probably The Chosen of Jesus whipping with the, people and stuff, going, "He gets us." So hippie Jesus is not the only version of Jesus out there. Um so they this is the very end of their article. They must really hate them. Jesus did wash his disciples' feet. He was showing them the humiliation God went to in order to save the lost. The God who made billions of galaxies could be could become a human and humiliate himself by dying as a nobody in the middle of nowhere. The disciples expected Jesus to be the warrior king who would overthrow Caesar and make Israel mighty again. They did not understand the life of suffering he was calling them to. So how do we copy his example of washing feet? What would cause us humiliation and suffering? He said, "How about praying outside an abortion clinic and getting 10 years in jail after the U.S. Department of Justice drags you into court? How about refusing to give your endorsement to anything that stains a sacred institution of marriage by not baking a cake for a wedding of two men? How about singing hymns in public, even when authorities in places like England now say that such things can only be uttered inside churches? How about refusing to call your daughter a boy and fighting against a wicked state like Montana that takes her away for refusing to inject her with poison and mutilate her body? How about standing up against racial Marxism that burns down cities and venerates criminals in the name of social justice? How about refusing to acknowledge the lives of powerful people who try to use a virus to take power? What about advocating to make your nation look more like God's by saying, banning porn, knowing that Christ is coming with a robe dipped in blood to judge the nations? What about having secure borders with good immigration policies so we can help the poor, the widow, the fatherless, and the foreigner without bankrupting our social services and subjecting our neighbors and children to rapists, traffickers, murderers, and drug cartels? See, he gets us, but do we get him? So, yeah. Yeah, and when Jesus did wash the feet um of his disciples, Peter did not, he wasn't cool with it, because that was in his mind something lowly that Jesus should not be doing. But he's trying to teach them a lesson on service. And they had conversations, about like, oh, who goes is going to sit, at the side of the Father and stuff, and like arguing about who's kind of like the greatest or whatever. And she's like, guys, like, get over yourselves. Like, let me show you. Service is a good thing. But this organization is like, Jesus, you got to wash the feet of everybody, and they're like, your Jesus washed the feet of his neighbors and his enemies. And I'm like, where are they? They pretty much only talk about that like in the disciples, unless I'm missing something. But they get that because Peter was going to deny him, and they got that from Judas because Judas was going to betray him. And I think there's lots of commentary you can get for why Judas rolled with them all the time, knowing that he always had issues. Besides the fact that he was betraying Jesus, he like stole. He like stole. Remember when he was like chastising the woman for like, using perfume on Jesus's feet and stuff? Like, we could have sold this to the poor. That dude was stealing money. He always had issues. He always had problems, but sometimes you let the wheat grows with the tear. And but I don't think that's the same as like I don't know, going to wash the feet of like Baal worshippers right before a sacrifice. I just don't get that vibe from the story myself. And so much so that I would take out all this money for a Super Bowl ad to put that out there rather than um teaching something that's kind of more on the money. Now I'm sure many people have gone to their website. I went to their website to read up on them. Um, it seemed very vague, a lot of things. They had different devotionals you could do. I started just looking through some of their devotionals to see if they got more into the nitty gritty. But even like they're like, who is Jesus? Who do we believe they're Jesus? Like, well, some of us believe that, you know, he's God. And it just didn't just come out strongly for truth. It didn't strongly come out and do that. So I don't know what all the end game is here. And I see it, you know, people sticking up for them are like, well, I know these people, I know, you know, they're Christians, etc. According to their own website, they're not all Christians. They're not all Christians. So you don't know what the whole agenda there was. But let me just see if there's any other kind of scriptures I wanted to mention. So briefly, people talk about love your neighbor. Absolutely. But love your neighbor is the second greatest commandment. The first one is to love God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul. So you can't properly, you need to have a perspective of love and order before you go out and even love your neighbor. Really, you need to have your perspective of how you love and honor God first. That's the key thing. That's the key thing. And you love God, one, by spreading the gospel, but also keeping his commandments. So you got to have that in line, and love your neighbor. Right? And if you look at the 10 commandments, which I'm not going to go through them, but the first couple ones address like having no other god, having no other gods before him, not making graven images, not taking the Lord's name in vain, remember Sabbath and stuff. Those things deal with loving God first. And then the rest of them about how you treat your neighbor, like not coveting and other things like that. Not murdering, not stealing, etc. Right? So there's these commandments about loving the Lord, and then there's these commandments about loving those around you. But they all keep in line with God's commandments. and honoring him is always a priority. When you go to like what the Bible talks about love, it says love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So there's a lot there. But love is not just an emotional connection between people. It's a list of commandments. It's a command. They're a list of actions. It's not easy to love your enemy, but we have to do it nonetheless. But to love your neighbor, you can't love your neighbor and rejoice in their wrongdoing. You can't love your neighbor and rejoice in their evil or pacify their evil. You can't do that. You have to love truth. So there's that. And I already talked about and when Jesus told Peter, yes, you know, if you love me, feed my sheep, feed my lambs, you know, keep my commandments. If you love God, if you claim you love God, then honor God, keep his commandments, spread the Great Commission. The Bible does teach that there are particular things that the Lord hates. This is from Proverbs chapter 6. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. We go back to that abortion clinic. A heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil. I mean, you're planning to do some shady stuff there. A false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. A lot of things can apply to a lot of people there. But there are certain things that the Lord does hate. And this is the last thing I guess I want to mention on the topic, at least I think. Um, this passage about the cost of discipleship. Because when they say God doesn't teach you hate, now this was the first thing that I guess that did pop in my mind. But when God tells you got to hate your mother and your father, now he doesn't mean that literally. He doesn't mean that literally, but this passage explains what he means here. Now great crowds accompanied him. And this is Luke 14, by the way. Now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned and said to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Now, he does not mean that literally. It's just kind of a saying. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king, going out to encounter another king in war, will not sit down first and deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000. And if not, while the other is yet a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. So you have to be willing to lay everything down in order to be a disciple of Christ. That's what Jesus is saying. Now, did you literally have to hate your mother? The Bible, we're supposed to honor our mothers and fathers, etc., not provoke your children to wrath, and so on. So, but the point is made. Like in relation to God, he's at the top. Everything else is secondary. Is too generous to say. It's far too generous to kind of even say, I think, in relation to the tier of like you honoring God versus everything else. But so this culture of people trying to push niceness and social acceptability to get along, to go along, that is not it. That is not the gospel. Yes, Jesus was kind and compassionate and forgiving, and he reached out and to people who folks did not expect people to reach out to, but he did also tell people to sin and go and sin no more. We are expected to crucify ourselves, deny ourselves, take up our cross daily. And the more you do that, because it might be like, crucify ourselves, like that sounds like it's too much. The more you get closer to God, me super evangelizing right here, I promise you, the more about yourself, the true you that you're supposed to be, you will discover. And just allow him to lead you. But that you think you are, you got to put them on the cross, man. You got to put them on the cross. And there's a lot of people out here who feel that they do that, but they are so desperate to be liked. They are so desperate to be liked that the gospel actually ends up becoming secondary. And they think they're being nice, but they're not being kind. And they're certainly not being loving if appeasing people's feelings and pacifying their sins is rated above actually you spreading the gospel or you trying to help them be closer to God, or you yourself even keeping the commandments that God has laid out. So I, again, not a fan of the commercial. I think some political implications are pretty clear in there. I think the He Gets Us campaign, is it striking up conversations? Absolutely sure. But so did Tim Tebow when he put John 3:16 on his face. So you could have used a better opportunity to witness. Again, I think if they had a message that was similar to that message in the Phil Robinson movie, when the preacher finally sat down and talked to him and began to open his eyes about accepting God, like that just nailed the gospel So good. So good. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a good movie, good quality, good acting, good story. You know, it one funny thing, we were watching it with my nephew. He's 8, and we're just like, my sister like, just so you know, there's probably gonna be some swearing and some stuff in there, um, just to kind of like get him, prepare him or whatever for it. And we're watching the film, and at one point, Phil, he has a problem with alcohol. His friends like got him into alcohol, and then he decided to get back on his luck financially. He bought a bar, and he's just like, why did he buy a bar? I'm just like, out of the mouths of babes. Some wisdom there that Phil obviously did not have, or he just suppressed the truth probably in that case, because it was, why would you buy a bar if you had a problem? But it was a good movie though. I've recommended it before, but anyway, I'm gonna cover this Trump Taylor Swift thing really quickly. Really, really quickly. So Donald Trump wrote on Twitter. I'm sorry, not on Twitter. It was Truth Social. Something about Taylor Swift. And I thought it was so bizarre. And I don't understand why. I guess he uses his platform for things like this. So he said, I signed and was responsible for the Music Modernization Act for Taylor Swift and all other music artists. Joe Biden didn't do anything for Taylor and never will. There's no way she could endorse crooked Joe Biden, the worst and most corrupt president in the history of our country, and be disloyal to the man who made her so much money. Besides that, I like her boyfriend, Travis, even though he may be a liberal and probably can't stand me. So, some people might be like, it's kind of funny or whatever, but I would assume if Taylor Swift was going to endorse anybody, it would be Joe Biden and it wouldn't be Trump. Now he mentioned like a thing that he did there, so that's good. And Taylor Swift obviously does get clicks and views and people talk about it, etc. Blah blah blah. I get that. But she's gonna probably, if she endorses anyone, it's probably not gonna be him. It's probably gonna be Joe. So is this like a kind of a warning shot? Like, what are you gonna do if she does do it? Or is that a kind of friendly, like, just stay out of it, like subtle, kind of not so subtle, stay out of it situation? Because that, I don't know, that doesn't seem like so much like Taylor now. I mean, she did that documentary thing and she cried when Marsha Blackburn won or whatever. She doesn't care about women. Okay. If anyone is going to be swayed by Taylor Swift, let's say she does endorse Joe. I know people are flipping out because she got like a couple thousand people to go in and sign up to register to vote. She's millions of followers. Like, it's, not that big of a deal. Whether they vote is a different story. But if someone is going to vote because Taylor Swift told them to, we're going to call that a low information voter. She does not say much. She can write some bops, I guess, that are pretty good. She has a couple songs that are like, oh, that's a good lyric there. That's a good lyric there. But most celebrities should probably take Mark Wahlberg's advice, or he's just like, people don't want to hear you talk about politics. Like, you're there for a job. Let it be what it is, or whatever. But Taylor Swift, I saw someone on TikTok complaining about Taylor Swift. Like, I always knew she was a bad person because she wouldn't say anything about these different events or whatever. And now she says stuff, but she only says stuff after it's kind of like, fine to say it and not that controversial. She's like she's not saying anything about Israel and Palestine. And so when they mean like she's a bad person for not speaking up, they mean that she's a bad person for not saying what they want her to say. And she complained about how she like, well, her team probably kept her quiet, but she let her team keep her quiet. Her team probably was like, I don't know, maybe she was just a hard R or something, and she didn't want to tick people off and didn't say anything. Or maybe she wasn't a hard R and she didn't want to say something and tick people off, and her team was just like, you make music, you're America's sweetheart, just make music, that's what people like you for. And fair enough. Fair enough. But after a certain period of time, I don't know if you guys recall, but this is kind of everywhere. People started to say like Taylor Swift's silence is deafening. People were saying that all the time. The folks on the right started just saying that with everything to mock the people on the left who would say that, and they make up crazy scenarios about like Taylor Swift's silence on the McDonald's dollar menu being gone and being by one get one for $1 is the silence is deafening, like stuff like that, because that's what folks kept mentioning over and over again. They were trying to bully her to actually say something. So eventually, she starts getting on the Democrat train and telling people to vote out Marsha Blackburn and other folks like that. So that's where her trajectory is now. And so if she says anything, she's gonna probably stomp for Joe. But Beyonce couldn't make Hillary Clinton president, so I don't think Taylor is going to be the one who pushes Americans over the edge. I really don't. I really don't. So if he can think that he can persuade her with these tweets, that's one thing. But if she goes out and does it, I don't get how that ultimately makes him look good. I mean, maybe the goal is when she does say something that people will be like, but Trump did this thing and you're a traitor to him or something. But what would she care? I mean, I'm sure her team and her will weigh the pros and cons of getting involved and saying anything about the election. But I don't know how much honestly could hurt either Joe or Trump for anyone to come out and endorse one or the other, because a lot of Americans don't like either one of them anyway. If she came out for Joe, people wouldn't be like, oh, she really likes Joe. They'd just be like, she's not for Trump. And Joe and Trump both there's people who really love Trump. I don't know if there's anyone who really loves Joe. But overall they both have some high unfavorables, man. So if I was her, or if I was most celebrities, I probably wouldn't say much. But if I was Trump, I wouldn't say much either. He was the president of the United States, looking like he could probably be president again. And even before that, one of the biggest celebrities in the world. Bringing up Taylor Swift, I know she's a big star or whatever, but it just kind of seems so beneath his time, I guess. But he writes so much about different stuff on social media, I guess. What's one more thing? But I thought that was weird when he kept going after like people even in the primary who were his opponents or whatever. I'm just like, act like they're not even there. I mean, he did that pretty much with the debates and wouldn't debate him or whatever, but he still did things like make bingo cards claiming that Ron DeSantis supported slavery and claim that he was like a groomer and a bunch of really awful stuff. He walked into it over the weekend talking about where's Nikki Haley's husband, and he was like serving country like in the military or whatever. So people were dunking on him, and Haley said something about it, and Joe Biden said something about it. So not a good look. He could literally just ignore these people and solely focus on Joe. Just solely focus on Joe. And that's my advice to him, and it has been my advice to him. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It does cost a stream, around my website, all that stuff. If you like to support. You guys can still send stars if you're watching back later. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, you guys can send super thanks. So I do thank you guys for joining me. Go to my website, check out different merch that we have, like this cool "The Constitution is a Glorious Liberty" document shirt with Frederick Douglass, and we got all kinds of other stuff you guys can check out there as well. And you guys can check out some of my books that I have. You guys can, check them out on Amazon. If you search my name, I have 17 books that are out. Most are fiction, ranging from like children's chapter books to like new adult stuff. But I do have two fiction, I'm sorry, nonfiction books. One of the books is the book I already mentioned earlier. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion. And that book, it does covers rights and science and theology and so on. So I'd recommend that you guys check that out. But as I said, I know I like um use direct language. I don't want to say harsh, but direct language about the topic. Yes, I do have books. Uh, I see legends in the comments. Yes, I do have many books. Thank you for asking. My book, it opens up with a passage from Paul, right, talking about like his letters. It's like I wrote not meaning to, like, with really grieved heart, not meaning to cause you harm. Let me see if I can just, for I wrote to you out of much affliction and anguish of heart and with many tears, not to cause you pain, but to let you know the abundant love that I have for you. And man, I know these are like heavy topics that sometimes we talk about, but just like from a perspective, like in the Christian world, even when you don't go out and you like do things that are kind of blatant on the nose, kind of things like that's a bad sin there, that's a bad sin, there's a bad sin. There's always kind of a deeper level where you can get checked, like, oh my gosh, I need to check my heart there, or like, oh my gosh, I need to get better, like, oh, I need to humble myself some more. And I'm not going to tell details or anything like that. Really, it would be kind of a long story that people wouldn't get anyway if I even tried it really on this live. But there was just something that I prayed and was like worshiping on Friday when I was, like, Lord, just, not my will, but your will. Like, I just want to I just want you to be glorified. So, there are times when everyone else, it doesn't matter how saved you believe you get, the more you kind of, the deeper you get into relationship with God, like there's always a next level of some kind of humbling or whatever. So, no one is perfect, but we have to just kind of keep pursuing um that goal as if it is obtainable, and walking down that path is at the very least we can ask for and what we should aspire toward. So um just keep trying and trying to be better, and don't be afraid to preach the gospel even to someone who may not know it, to someone who you think has heard it or whatever. Maybe they need a nudge, maybe need some help, or maybe that iron will sharpen iron. And we do it with love, not with a haughty kind of spirit or anything like that, but like as Paul wrote, like, I have abundant love for you. That's why people need the correction. So there are people in my life who correct me. Um and so, we're well, not everyone listening is probably within the consider themselves to be the body of Christ, but if you're in the body of Christ, we're all learning and growing together. So uh thank you guys for joining me again. I hope you liked the um as my sister saying, present for holding me accountable is I assume I assume um I appreciate you guys watching today and commenting and engaging and so on. I know I didn't address like every comment. Yep, she said yep. She said yep. Okay, okay. Um but anyway, God bless you guys. And there was before I let you go, there was a shooter who went to the Olstein's church, and there's some details that have come out, and we'll probably talk about that more tomorrow. Well, we didn't talk about it today, so we'll probably talk about it tomorrow. But I like to kind of not jump on those things like immediately because so many details change. So I will have a more kind of expanded view of what's going on. So we'll talk about those details tomorrow. But interesting things written on the AR-15 there and other stuff. So we'll get into that. And God bless you.